Hi guys, and thanks for joining us today. My name's Dheeraj, and I'm joined today by Faith, both from VoiceMag, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. With all that's been going on with government recently, there's a bit of a narrative building online that Labour's got a bit of an open goal that they can't score in. So, Faith and I are going to be outlining some of the arguments. I'm going to be playing the against role. Faith's going to be playing the for role. But quick disclaimer, what we're about to say does not necessarily reflect our views personally or the views of VoiceMag. So, without further ado, first point that we're going to get into is the policies. So, my argument here, Faith, is that even Labour supporters don't necessarily know what Labour's policies are at the moment, which is a massive issue because all Labour has is that they're not the Tories. All people seem to know is that they're the left-wing party in opposition without any details of the actual policies, which is a massive issue compared to the Tories, who have very controversial policies, but you definitely know what they are because of that. So my argument is that unless Labour clears their policies up, makes them much more accessible to people, like they used to do under New Labour, that they won't be in power again. What do you think?
So I think you do make some really good points, and there's no kind of argument that Labour are very fractured at the minute, and that maybe some people don't understand what they stand for. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I disagree with that wholeheartedly. However, I think there is still a strength in a working class government. I think we can do it if they pull their policies together. I think Angela Rayner could be an excellent next leader. Maybe Keir isn't necessarily the one, but I think Labour can reform themselves, and I think a working class government could actually do a lot more for the country.
Fair play. So I put this to people on the Voice socials, and I asked the question, how clear do you feel Labour's policies are? We had 20 respondents, and the results are they're not the best for them, but very clear was 0%, sort of clear was 45%, and not clear at all was 55%. So from that, it kind of seems as if people don't necessarily think that their policies are clear, but let us know what you think, guys. So the next point I wanted to move on to was leadership. Keir Starmer's obviously leader of the Labour Party at the moment, and I think that might be holding the party back a little bit. I feel as if a younger, more personable, and a more dynamic leader would be able to capitalize on the mess that is the Tory party at the moment. That analogy I used earlier that I've seen people use online, it's like Labour, it's like the Tories have left an open goal, yet Labour can't score. And I think a big part of that is that the guy who's taking that penalty is Keir. The issue with Keir is people don't necessarily love him or hate him, it's that they're indifferent. And I think that's the worst thing that you can be towards a leader, because people just don't care. You think about people like Ed Miliband, for all his faults, people definitely had an opinion on him, they cared about him, and they got people engaged. What do you reckon, Faith?
I mean, yeah, I think you do have a point. And I mean, I did kind of touch on that in my previous point, but I think the most out of touch you can get with the country is a man from Eton who repeatedly lies, doesn't pay his, fines as they were, even if they are ridiculously small, and just generally is probably the worst leader this country has definitely seen in my lifetime, but maybe even in my dad's lifetime, or at least back to Margaret Thatcher. So would you rather have someone who you don't necessarily relate to, but has a fairly good set of decent morals, or somebody who is just an outright liar that, quite frankly, does mislead the House of Parliament.
That's a good point. So I asked again on socials, the question I asked was, is Keir Starmer the right leader for the Labour Party? Again, we had 20 respondents and it was quite clear. 20% of people said yes, 80% of people said no. So again, let us know what you think, guys. So in conclusion, Faith, would you agree if I say that what seems to be a common thread between what we've both said is that in their current state, Labour won't necessarily win an election. But if they maybe make some changes that they have the potential to, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes for both parties. You know, I'm not going to tie myself to a party here, but I think both parties have issues that they do need to work on. I mean, I think we can all guess what they are because they're in and out of the news every day. But I do think a working class government can happen. But I think we really need to look at the way that, you know, the media portrays different parties and whether we are using social media as an echo chamber to get our information on whether we're actually actively thinking about a government. But yeah, I think they're both fractured, but I think there's definitely a way out for Labour and maybe even the Tories, although I can't see that happening right now.
Yeah. So that was the final poll question I asked, actually. I asked you guys whether you think we'll see another win by Labour in their current state. Had 25 people respond to this one. So the yeses were 68% and the noes were 32%. So again, we'll drop those questions in the description to this video. Be really interested to hear all your thoughts. And thanks for joining us. Cheers, Faith.
Cheers.